Some things people say might sound sweet, honest, or even loving at first. But when you take a step back and look deeper, you'll realize those words can actually be red flags. They might come from a man who hasn't healed emotionally, and instead of bringing peace into your life, he slowly pulls it away. You won't always see the danger right away, because it hides under smooth words. But those words have weight. They carry deeper meaning, and if you ignore them, you might find yourself trapped in a relationship that drains you over time. Comment, "I protect my peace," if you've ever ignored a red flag and regretted it later. Psychologist Carl Jung taught that we all have a shadow, parts of ourselves we avoid or deny. When someone speaks from that shadow, their words can be a warning. This isn't your usual relationship advice. It's about protecting your soul before it gets tied to someone who refuses to grow. Every phrase I'm going to show you is like a quiet alarm bell. These aren't just words, they're clues that someone's hidden pain might soon become your burden. Let's begin with a phrase that sounds harmless at first. "You have to accept me as I am." You might think he's just being real with you. Maybe you'll see it as him being open or honest. But often, this is not about honesty. It's about avoiding responsibility. When a man says this after you've brought up his bad behavior, what he's really saying is, "I won't change. You need to lower your standards for me." Think about it. This usually comes up after you've pointed out things like emotional distance, disrespect, or toxic habits. And instead of listening and trying to grow, he throws this line at you like a shield. Carl Jung said, "True healing starts when we face what we don't want to deal with." But this phrase shows he isn't ready to face anything. Instead, he's asking you to carry the emotional weight for both of you. This isn't what a healthy relationship looks like. Real love is about growing together, not asking one person to do all the emotional work. If a man truly loves you, he won't expect you to stay stuck while he refuses to improve. He'll want to grow with you. But this phrase shows you he has stopped trying, and he wants you to stop too. So next time you hear a man say this, ask yourself, is he being real, or is he just making excuses? Because if someone's always resisting change, it won't get better. It will get worse. And before you know it, you'll be the one doing all the bending, all the fixing, while he stays exactly the same. Now, if you think that phrase is dangerous, the next one might seem like just sharing his past, but it reveals something even deeper and more toxic. It's this: all my exes were crazy. When a man says, "all my exes were crazy," you might think he's just venting. Maybe he had some tough breakups. But if you hear this often, or if he says it about every woman from his past, you need to stop and pay attention. This phrase is a big warning sign, not because of what he says about them, but because of what it reveals about him. Carl Jung taught us that people project their hidden problems onto others. So when someone keeps blaming others for everything that went wrong, it's usually because they haven't taken a serious look at themselves. A man who calls all his exes crazy is likely someone who sees himself as the victim in every situation. And that tells you something important. He avoids responsibility, and he probably hasn't grown from those past relationships. The truth is, it's almost impossible that every ex he's had was the problem. It's far more likely that he played a part in those breakups too, but doesn't want to admit it. According to Jung, what we push away in ourselves often shows up in how we describe others. So when he talks about how crazy his exes were, he might actually be describing the way he made them feel, ignored, blamed, or emotionally worn down. This kind of man repeats the same relationship mistakes again and again. And instead of learning or changing, he tells himself the same story, that he's always the one who got hurt. And here's the scary part. If you stay with someone like this, eventually you will become his next crazy ex. He'll talk about you the same way when it ends, no matter how hard you tried or how much you cared. Being with someone who always blames others is exhausting. You'll try so hard to be the one who understands him, who's different. You'll try to avoid upsetting him, walking on eggshells just to keep things peaceful. But no matter what you do, you won't be able to fix what he refuses to face in himself. So ask yourself this: has he ever taken real ownership of his past mistakes? Has he ever said, "Here's what I learned," or "Here's how I could have been better"? If the answer is no, then he's not ready for a real healthy relationship. And if you ignore this sign, you might find yourself trying to love someone who has no intention of changing and blaming you when things fall apart. But if you think blaming his past is bad, the next phrase goes even deeper. It's not just about avoiding responsibility, it's about using your love as a weapon. And it sounds like this: if you really loved me, you'd do what I ask. This might sound like a plea for closeness, like he's being vulnerable. But don't be fooled. This phrase is emotional blackmail, dressed up as love. It's not about connection. It's about control. Real love doesn't force or guilt you into doing things. It invites. It respects. It gives you freedom. But this phrase takes that freedom away. It puts pressure on your heart, making you feel like saying no means you don't care. That's not love. That's manipulation. Carl Jung explained that when people haven't faced their emotional wounds, they try to control others instead of healing themselves. This phrase is a clear sign of that. When a man says, "If you loved me," he's putting a condition on your love. He's saying, "Prove it, or else." And that's dangerous, because it teaches you to fear upsetting him instead of feeling safe to be yourself. At first, it might be something small. "If you loved me, you'd call me back right away." But over time, it gets bigger. "If you loved me, you'd stop hanging out with your friends." Then it becomes, "If you loved me, you'd give up parts of yourself to keep me happy." Before you realize it, you're changing your life, not because you want to, but because you're scared to disappoint him. This kind of love doesn't help you grow. It shrinks you. It makes you feel like you're always failing, always one step away from losing his affection. Jung called this a loss of individuation, the process of becoming your full self, and that's what this phrase attacks most: your ability to stand in your own truth. The right response: stay grounded. Stay firm. If someone loves you, truly loves you, they won't test your love with threats or guilt. They'll trust it. They'll honor your choices, even when you say no. Because real love doesn't come with conditions. It doesn't ask you to give up who you are to prove your feelings. What this phrase really means is, "I want control over your choices." But your love is not something to be manipulated. It's something to be shared. And any man who tries to guilt you into obedience is not trying to love you. He's trying to own you. But if you think this kind of guilt is hard to handle, the next phrase goes even deeper. It's a direct attack on your self-worth, and it can shake your identity to the core. The word, "You're not enough for me." These words can cut deeper than any insult. They can make you question everything about yourself, your value, your beauty, your heart. But let me be clear, when someone says this, it's not about you at all. It's a reflection of them, of their own emptiness, their own self-doubt, their own pain they haven't healed. Carl Jung explained that people often criticize others for things they're secretly struggling with inside themselves. So when a man tells you that you aren't enough, he's likely trying to cover up the truth that he doesn't feel enough. And instead of facing that pain, he projects it onto you, making you feel like the problem. This is a dangerous cycle, because after hearing this, you might start trying harder, giving more, doing more, becoming quieter, more agreeable, more whatever he wants. But no matter what you do, it won't be enough. Why? Because the goalpost will keep moving. One day, it's your personality. The next, it's your dreams. Then it's your looks, your tone, your life. And slowly, you start disappearing just to keep him satisfied. The Stoic thinkers taught that your worth comes from your actions and your heart, not from someone else's opinion. But when someone tells you you're not enough, They're trying to control you by making you dependent on their approval. It's not love. It's emotional power play. It's someone using your natural desire to love and be loved against you. A man who truly sees you will never try to shrink you. He will remind you of your strength, not your weaknesses. He will build you up, not tear you down. If someone constantly makes you feel like you need to become more just to be loved, it's not because you're lacking. It's because they are. So, when you hear this phrase, remember who you were before you met him. Think of your strength, your story, the battles you've already overcome. Your worth is not a puzzle for someone else to solve. It's not something you have to prove. You were always enough, and still are. But as damaging as that phrase is, the next one might be the most confusing of all, because it pretends to give you freedom. But it's actually a trap. It's said in a cold, sharp tone that chills the air. And it sounds like this: do whatever you want. It sounds like he's giving you space, like he's being open, or even respectful. But pay attention to how he says it. If it's spoken with a cold voice, a sarcastic tone, or a sharp silence afterward, it's not freedom, it's punishment. He doesn't really mean, you're free to choose. He means, you'll pay for it later. Carl Jung talked about something called covert aggression. That means instead of showing anger directly, a person hides it under silence, passive remarks, or emotional games. This phrase is a perfect example. It's not clear communication, it's a setup. He wants you to guess what he's really feeling. And if you guess wrong, you'll feel the consequences. Maybe through the silent treatment, sudden mood swings, or guilt trips. This kind of communication is exhausting. You end up constantly watching his tone, scanning his face, trying to figure out what he really means, instead of trusting what he says. You lose your peace, your clarity, your ability to make choices for yourself without fear of upsetting him. The Stoics believed that truth should be spoken clearly. No games, no riddles. If someone has a problem, they should say it directly. But when someone uses phrases like this, they're keeping their feelings hidden and expecting you to carry the weight of their unspoken emotions. That's not fair, and it's not healthy. Living with someone who speaks like this forces you to become a mind reader. You stop trusting your own judgment. You start second-guessing every choice. Was that okay? Is he mad? You're not in a relationship anymore. You're in a maze of emotional confusion, and over time you lose the strength to speak your own truth. So the best response: take him at his word. If he says, do whatever you want, then go ahead and do what feels right to you. Don't chase after hidden meanings or try to manage his reaction. Doing this breaks the cycle. It forces him to either speak openly or sit in his own silence. A man who truly respects you won't speak in puzzles. He'll say what he means. He'll let you feel safe, not scared to make a move. Love isn't supposed to be a guessing game. It's supposed to be a place where you can breathe. Now, in the final part, we'll bring all of these phrases together, and I'll share the most important truth you need to remember if you've ever heard any of these words in your own relationship. If you've ever heard these phrases, you have to accept me as I am. All my exes were crazy. If you really loved me, you'd do what I ask. You're not enough for me. Do whatever you want. Then you've already felt the quiet weight they carry. These aren't just everyday words. They're warning signs. Each one shows you a piece of someone's hidden pain, the part of them that hasn't healed, hasn't grown, and might never take responsibility for how they affect others. Carl Jung said that when people don't deal with their inner wounds, those wounds end up controlling their lives and hurting the people around them. And that's what these phrases do. They're signs that a man's shadow, the part of him he doesn't want to face, is starting to show. And if you stay too long, that shadow will stretch into your life, into your mind, into your peace. You were never meant to be someone's emotional fixer. You were never meant to carry someone who refuses to walk beside you. You're here to grow, to become your full, strong, loving self. And real love, healthy love, Make space for that. It supports your healing. It helps you become more of who you truly are, not less. So ask yourself, have you ignored these warning signs in the past? Have you ever stayed in something that made you feel smaller, more confused, or constantly not enough? You're not alone. So many women have gone through this. But the moment you recognize the pattern is the moment you take your power back. You have the right to protect your peace. You have the right to walk away from confusion, guilt, and manipulation. Choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you wise. A woman who knows her worth chooses clarity over chaos, truth over games, and growth over someone else's comfort. So, if this message spoke to your heart, share your story in the comments. Let your voice be heard, not just for you, but for someone else who might need the courage to walk away from a love that's quietly breaking them. And remember this, you are enough. You always were. You just needed someone who could see it without needing to hurt you first.